Welcome to today's Explainer. We're setting sail for a tiny, absolutely fascinating piece of land off the coast of Alicante, Spain. It's called Tabarca Island. It's one of those rare places where history doesn't just sit behind glass in a museum. It's literally built right into the landscape. Today, we're going to explore how this barren, isolated rock transformed into a heavily armed military outpost and then, incredibly, evolved into a peaceful sanctuary for marine life. So let's get started.
Okay, let's dive into this. Franco ARTESEROS, through the Virtual Creative Factory's ARTESEROS Lens platform, puts it perfectly. He notes that Tabarca carries layers of history and culture in every stone and wave. And honestly, that is the perfect lens for us to use today. We aren't just looking at dry dates and facts here. We're looking at a literal masterclass in how a place and its people can completely reinvent themselves to survive and thrive when times change drastically.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, a lens on transformation. Second, the Tunisian repopulation. Third, fortress against Barbary corsairs. Fourth, the Posidonia Marine Sanctuary. And finally, Tabarca's modern legacy.
Starting with part 1, a lens on transformation. Survival, adaptation, and respect.
Let's move to and see how this builds over time. Prior to 1760, Tabarca was basically just an uninhabited refuge, often called Tiburon. But then, in 1760, everything changes with a massive repopulation effort. By the 18th century, it becomes this intense, fortified stronghold against corsairs. And then, fast forward to 1986, it totally shifts gears and earns a designation as a protected marine reserve. It's wild to think this isolated piece of rock was so completely transformed by both the people who settled it and the historical forces swirling around them.
Moving right along to part 2, the Tunisian repopulation. A new beginning in 1760.
1760. This year is the absolute pivot point for everything we're talking about today. King Charles III of Spain makes a huge strategic decision to establish a permanent settlement right on the island. He ordered it to be repopulated, but not with soldiers. Actually, it was repopulated with families fleeing the Tunisian city of Tabarca. These were primarily fishermen and their families, and they brought their entire world with them, their language, their unique customs, and their incredibly deep understanding of the sea. And with those new settlers came a brand new identity. The island shed its old names, like Isla de San Pablo or Tiburon, which mostly just reflected its time as a wild lookout point. It officially became Tabarca. And it's actually believed that this name comes from a Berber tribe associated with those original settlers from Tunisia. So the island's very name is a living testament to this incredibly unique blended heritage.
Which brings us to part 3, fortress against Barbary corsairs, designing for survival.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the environment itself became a weapon. The Mediterranean in the 18th century was, quite frankly, incredibly dangerous. It was plagued by the constant threat of pirate attacks. Because of this, Tabarca's physical environment was engineered purely for defense. The Spanish crown built these massively thick defensive walls completely surrounding the village, alongside a primary military fortress that served as the main stronghold. They had strategic sea watchtowers for early detection of approaching vessels. And get this, even the narrow streets were intentionally designed to confuse and slow down any invaders who actually managed to breach the walls. The amazing thing is, the entire village remains a standing military artifact of 18th century survival. We're not talking about a pile of forgotten ruins here. These structures are still standing. They are a defining, living feature of the landscape that you can literally walk right through today. Shifting gears now to part 4, the Posidonia Marine Sanctuary, transitioning from war to peace. So, the real milestone year for this era is 1986. Recognizing the absolute ecological goldmine of the surrounding underwater habitats, the Spanish government officially declared the crystal-clear waters around Tabarca a protected marine reserve. And I can't stress enough what a massive paradigm shift this was for the island.
So the crucial point is these Posidonia seagrass meadows. Now, these aren't just your everyday patches of seaweed. No way. They are absolutely vital underwater plant habitats. Think of them as the lungs of the Mediterranean. They play a critical role in maintaining both the rich marine biodiversity and that stunning water quality that draws so many divers and nature lovers to the area today.
The historical contrast here is just incredible. Look at it. The 18th century goal was entirely focused on military defense and survival against pirates. But the modern goal? It's all about ecological conservation and sustainable tourism. I mean, this really captures the profound adaptability of the Tabarca community. They took a space built strictly for war and flipped it, turning it into a sanctuary for nature. And that leads us to our final section, Part 5, Tabarca's Modern Legacy, a living culture today. Today, the descendants of those original 18th century Tunisian fishermen are still there, maintaining traditions that beautifully blend Spanish and North African influences. Their cuisine is, as you might guess, deeply tied to their maritime roots, lots of incredible, fresh local seafood. And while tourism absolutely booms in the summer, the population drops to just a few dozen residents during the off-season, which really helps preserve a highly authentic Mediterranean lifestyle. And this brilliantly illustrates how you can be part of that legacy. If you want to walk these historical walls and swim in the sanctuary, here's how to do it sustainably. You can take a quick 30-minute boat ride from either Alicante or Santa Pola. Pro tip, aim to visit in the spring or early autumn to avoid the heavy summer crowds. And most importantly, when you go, strictly follow the local guidelines to respect and protect the Posidonia Meadows and the Marine Reserve. So, Tabarca Island, adapted from an uninhabited rock to a fortress of war to a sanctuary of nature. It completely reinvented itself over and over to meet the needs of the time. Think about your own community for a second. With the rapid changes in our modern world, how will your community adapt for the future? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep adapting, and I'll catch you next time.